Welcome to episode 387 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. It's part one of the end of year special, and in this episode I've got two guests for you. Mark Fallon, President and CEO of the Berkshire Company, is going to join me to talk about the US Postal Service, and Cathy Morrow Roberson from Logistics Trends and Insights. I got there in the end, everybody. We're going to talk about bulky delivery, heavy and bulky delivery in the US, and bits and pieces around that. So, coming up first, Mark Fallon. Joining me on the line is Mark Fallon. Mark is the CEO and President of the Berkshire Company. Do you ever say that you're the President and CEO, or you're the CEO and President?
Normally I say President and CEO.
Oh, there you go, President and CEO. But today he's the CEO and President of the Berkshire Company. We're going to talk about US Postal Service, what's happening in the letters and parcel sector in the USA, what's happened in 2025, and looking forward to 2026. I suppose let's talk about the big thing. The joy out, new bloke in. So I say new bloke because he hasn't generated quite the same headlines as his predecessor. So tell us, what happened? We saw Louis DeJoy disappeared, not in a puff of smoke, but rather swiftly.
It was rather swiftly. What's interesting was, Ian, well, first, thanks for having me back. It's always great to see you. In mid-February, DeJoy announced that he was going to resign, but he would stay on while the board hired a new PMG. And in fact, we had a meeting in DC with industry, and he reiterated that. Then, less than a week after he said that, he announced he was leaving immediately. So, not sure what happened, but on March 14th, he just said bye, and he left. And they appointed the deputy PMG, Doug Tolino, as the acting. Right. So there was somebody in charge who had many years experience with the Postal Service. He was a career postal employee. Then on July 15th, David Steiner took over as Postmaster General. And what was interesting was there was no big lead up to that. So there was no announcement the week before they were going to have a public swearing in. It was taking notes from the side, what people were saying, to find out what was going on. He was very unassuming, and it was a private swearing in, not a public swearing in. But what was great was immediately after that, he released a video message to postal employees saying how this was service to his country. That was the first thing. That's how he sees this appointment, that the Postal Service needs to be an independent government agency. You may remember that the president had said he was thinking about moving the Postal Service under commerce and privatizing it. This gentleman said, nope, needs to remain an independent government agency, and that employees and their safety come first. So, I mean, really great messaging right out from the bat. He's very personable, and I've had the chance to listen to him in person 5 times now and talk with him one-on-one. Just a really intelligent, personable person. He was CEO of a company called Waste Management, which is in the U.S. It's exactly what you think it is. It is the largest trash.
It's not a pay TV network.
It's not a pay TV. But what was really interesting about that background, and he's laid that into it, is unlike other people from the outside who have come into the Postal Service, he was used to dealing with millions of customers, right? They pick up from millions of people. It's kind of the other end. The Postal Service is delivering. Waste Management is taking it away. So he does have that experience.
Are we seeing an e-commerce returns potential here?
Yes. He actually has brought that up. So you are stealing everything I have written down and prepared to tell you. You know, you're always ahead of the game. But yes, he is looking at e-commerce returns.
So tell us more about the reaction to PMG Steiner. You've mentioned it sounds like he's he's cut from a different cloth to his predecessor. How does the industry reacted? How have the stakeholders reacted? Can you just sort of give us a bit of a taste for what's happened there?
When he came in, so as you know, I'm on the Mailers Technical Advisory Committee. A week after his appointment, we were in DC for the quarterly meeting, plus the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Postal Service. When he came in the room, he got a standing ovation, right? And
I'm familiar with that reaction. It happens to me at home. I come into the kitchen. Anyway.
The kids were already standing. Sorry, Ian. But it was just so, and then 3 months later, he came and spoke to us again. And he didn't get a standing ovation, but he still got a round of applause when he came into the room. He loves coming to talk to us. So overall, what's been really, what's the right word here? I'm going to say interesting in my conversation with my peers is everyone is saying, let's not look back. Let's only look forward. So in other words, we're not going to bring up 2024, 2023, et cetera. It's all about what's going forward. He did, and he has said several times that he supports the Delivering for America plan. People are not happy with that overall. However, he then immediately says, but that is only a tactic. It's not my only strategy. So that has been good. And then the next thing he did, and it was his decision, I've confirmed this with postal executives, he decided to cancel the January rate increase. That was his decision. And that was important to the industry. Like, he is listening to us, that twice a year increases is not going to work. He has admitted that service needs to improve. And we have actually seen improvements since then. He said that's a main priority. And at the last Board of Governors meeting, this was the really great news. And it comes from executives I used to work for in the past, is that the Postal Service can't cost cut its way to profitability, that it has to grow revenue. And the focus on that, and I copied and pasted his words because I don't want to get it wrong, but it's the first and last mile. His words, we can and will better utilize and monetize the first and last mile. So instead of being concerned with the middle and trucking and all that kind of stuff, it's how do we make better use of these retail outlets, right? 35,000 outlets across the United States. And how do we make better use of the 250,000 carriers delivering to 100 million addresses a day? And he followed up with action, not just words. So in January, the prior postal administration had canceled UPS's contract for small packages. They were consolidating small packages. He has restarted negotiations. And I think you even pointed that out in one of the daily briefings, that UPS released the press release about that, right? They're excited about this opportunity. He's also started to work with DHL. So he really sees where the Postal Service can make money is in those 35,000 retail units and those carriers. He's like, nobody has the last mile like we do. He was challenged by that at the last MTAC meeting, and he came right back. He said, I am not giving up ownership of the final mile. So he is following through on the rhetoric with action. So that has created a very positive atmosphere. I am by nature a skeptic, but he is consistent. He has been very consistent. He has said things that in the current environment in DC would not be considered politically correct, and really feels very strongly that diversity is important. He talked before the women in logistics delivery services, and he said, I'm sure women in logistics and delivery have a challenge in that male-dominated environment. Try to think about women in the trash industry. He said they have it much more difficult. So he comes from a place, in my opinion, of trying to do the right thing, and I think he will. The Postal Service is facing a lot of challenges in the next year, but I feel confident that we have a leader, and he does exhibit true leadership qualities to bring it to success.
And we're going to have a look forward to 2026 in a moment, Mark. But before we do, the Board of Governors, we're back in the old situation where there aren't enough What's happening there with the Board of Governors, and what does it mean for the management of and the running of USPS?
So a year ago, when you had me on for year end, President Biden had 4 nominees, and he had the support of the opposition party's leadership. And I said, oh, we're going to be fine. Well, one senator, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, who is not a fan of the U.S. Postal Service, wants it privatized, put a halt on those votes. And so then another governor, his holdover year ends December 8th. So they will be down to 4 of 9 nominees or nominated governors. President Trump has nominated 2 people, withdrew 1 person. The other person has not gotten a hearing. So what could happen? As you said, we're back where we were under President Obama. So the Board of Governors, the appointed folks, are the only ones that can approve rate increases. So if they lose, I think, 1 more, what they're going to probably do is do the same thing they did 16 years ago and appoint a temporary exigent emergency committee that has the powers to do that. The other governors, there's one that her holdover year doesn't end until 2027, and then the rest are 2028 or beyond. So I think there are enough there to carry through to the next president. But yeah, we could be right back where it is. Mr. Steiner is running the Postal Service. He doesn't need the board for that. He needs the board for any additional loans to take out for things like electric vehicles or new buildings, but he doesn't need the board for day to day. He and his team have that.
Once again, I signal my availability to fill a role on the USPS Board of Governors. If anyone from the White House wants to reach out, as I like to say these days, my email address is ian@thepostalhub.com. Right, Mark, in all seriousness then, let's look forward to 2026. Things like letter volumes, what's happening with periodicals, magazines, what's happening with contracts and unions and the competition in parcels. Give us a bit of a taste of what's ahead of us in 2026.
Well, like the rest of the world, letter mail volumes continue to decline. October was the first month of the fiscal year, and compared to 2024 was a considerable decline. However, 2024 was a presidential election year, and the elections happened in November, so October is a huge mailing month. Well, 2026, while a midterm election, is going to be highly contested. So there will be a lot of election mail, I think, that may stabilize volumes. Again, cautiously optimistic this time around. Periodicals continue to decline. Newspaper deliveries continue to decline. Parcels, well, a certain company who also plays in the space world continues to deliver more and more of their own packages. The Postal Service has entered into an agreement to pick up returns at people's homes, right? This is really, really big. It goes back to Steiner saying he owns the final mile. Well, you know what? It's not just dropping off. It can be picking up those returns. And he has said he wants to look at that for local shippers as well, right? Local retail. Okay, you're sending it to them. Well, we can return it for you. This is, I think, you're not going to win back, right? I mean, Amazon's not going to give up any packages. You're not going to win that back. However, they don't want to be picking it up, right? So to have the Postal Service take that, I would, and it's, I don't know, you probably follow return logistics better than I do. What's the volume of that? 10% of all shipments get returned?
I think the answer is it depends. It depends on the category, right? It varies significantly across categories. I think it's an interesting one when we're talking about doorstep collection of returns, and maybe it's a discussion for another day when we talk about some of the pitfalls. The parcels have to be ready for collection, left somewhere where they can be collected. You don't want the postie hanging around on the doorstep, but that also, there's an incentive for the retailer to try and get those returns back quicker, especially if we're talking about certain retail categories and leading up to sales events. You want those things back in stock. Anyway, I'm on the verge of...
I just want to say one thing. It's not just at the doorstep. It's also those 35,000 post offices they can bring returns to.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. There's many things you can do with a good post office network. Again, I would just like to alert the US Postal Service to my availability to serve as the governor, where I can bring all my expertise and a lifetime in the post office world. details. Anyway, Mark, I suspect that President Trump and his team might not listen to this podcast, but you never know, they might. It could happen. Just a quick comment then, Mark, about contracts and the workforce and stakeholders. Anything of interest coming up on that front?
So several of the union contracts are either in negotiation. I believe the letter carriers are, the APWU, their president just retired. So that change of leadership, under the next year to 18 months, I believe all three contracts, right? There's three major unions will be coming up. So that will be a challenge for the Postmaster General. However, his deputy PMG, Doug Tolino, was also the head of human resources. So he has an experienced negotiator on his team.
Mark, if people want to find out more about the Berkshire company and all the things that you do, how should they find out more? Where should they go? What should they do?
Well, our website is berkshirecompany.com. That makes it very easy for people to find. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Fallon at the Berkshire Company, and wherever else you would like to find me. I don't have much of a profile on Facebook, and my Instagram is all about wood carving and flowers.
Well, I don't know how to react to that. Wood carving and flowers. Well, it's an esoteric mix, I think is the best way.
Wood carving and flowers.
And flowers. Well, you're not carving flowers. You're not carving flowers out of wood. No. Anyway, all right. I've laboured the point there, I think, Mark, just a little bit. Mark, thanks again, as always, for joining us on the Post Hub podcast, not just in this episode and earlier on this year, but over the years, you've brought your immense wealth of experience, your talent, and your ability to laugh at my poor jokes, which is always appreciated. Mark Fallon, President and CEO of the Berkshire Company, thanks for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thanks, Ian. Have a great end of your year.
Joining me on the line is Cathy Morrow Roberson from Logistics Trends and Insights. Cathy, we're going to talk about big and bulky delivery today. Let's start with sort of a big picture question. When it comes to the delivery of big and bulky items, things like, I don't know, an oven, a tractor wheel, a gas cylinder, a table tennis table. There's a few, right? These retailers in the US, are they looking at insourcing or doing in-house delivery, or are they outsourcing the delivery for these big and bulky items?
I think you're finding more and more retailers in-housing these deliveries versus outsourcing to a company, like UPS or FedEx, for example, just because that brand, the brand is priceless, going from, the store up to our front steps. But at the same time, there's technology now available that allows a lot of these retailers to control that last mile themselves versus having to depend on a delivery company.
And what about some of the value-added services then that we're seeing out there? So postal people like me, we just think about delivery, and you deliver a parcel, and that's that. You don't have to take it inside and plug it in. So when it comes to some of these big and bulky deliveries, are value-added services part of this, the extension of this brand that you're just talking about?
Yeah. So, you were talking about such services as, or white glove services, delivery, setup, plugging in that TV. Of course, nowadays a TV is no longer plug it up. You have to do a little bit of finagling, let's just say.
That's what it says in the instructions. There's a whole section on finagling. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And at the end it says, call your son/daughter as applicable, usually.
Exactly. Yeah, now you're getting me back, huh?
Anyway, let's get back to the point though.
There's also, if you think about it, even for medical equipment, it's a lot of folks, older people staying at home versus going to a nursing home or what have you. So their oxygen tanks are being set up by these delivery people, instructions how to work them and such. So they are indeed value-added services.
There's also things like taking away an old appliance,
Exactly.
or
A
dealing with the
mattress.
packaging. You know, if you don't have a child in the house who wants to play with the packaging, or a cat. Cats love the boxes, don't they? Anyway,
Oh, they do. They
I'm
do.
going off topic again, Cathy. Let's get back on topic. Let's start talking about cats and boxes. Let's have a look at a couple of case studies. If you've had a look at what some of these major US retailers are doing when it comes to their big and bulky delivery. Now, let's start with a name that maybe not everybody knows, but we can probably guess what they do. Tractor Supply. Tell us a bit about what they're up to.
So Tractor Supply, for folks that are not familiar with the company, they really service a lot of farmers, the rural gardeners, and such as that. So they have, they're building out their own last mile delivery service. In fact, I believe they cover up to like 70 to 80% of last mile deliveries themselves. And they utilize their stores. There are hub stores, and then there are like satellite stores. So that hub and spoke network that they operate in. And they're doing this because, according to them, their customers trust them. It's all about trust. And their Tractor Supply's employees are very knowledgeable in like fences, these pallets of cattle feed or what have you. I'm not sure what cows eat other than grass, but you get my gist there. They stress the trust factor, and that's why they're doing more and more of this.
And that's, I suppose, a key part of that, like a rural relationship thing as well.
Yeah.
That sounds a little bit of a cliche, but yeah. Let's talk about a retailer that we're a little bit more familiar to people. That's Costco, Costco Wholesale. What's happening there when it comes to delivery, Cathy?
So with Costco, they bought a last mile provider in this big and bulky space back in 2020 for like $1 billion. And a lot of folks thought, well, that's a little ridiculous, but it's really proven a smart move for them because they also have expanded their capabilities. And I mean, it's like every quarter they talk about, we're up in the number of deliveries by 10%, 12%, and so on. And again, it's about trust and that knowledge of the items that they're moving and their value-added services. You know, a lot of washing machines, refrigerators and such.
So they've brought that in-house. Are they still partnering with Instacart for some of their fast deliveries or something?
Yeah. So, I mean, and the same with Tractor Supply. They're not doing all of their deliveries. They do have partnerships with others. Again, like you said, Costco.com partners with Instacart. So if you order online, you know, supposedly you'll get that delivery within the day, within the hour, depending on how much you're willing to spend for that service.
Now let's move on to a famous name in online commerce, and that's Wayfair. So what are we seeing with Wayfair when it comes to in-house, outsourced, and the bulky deliveries?
Well, Wayfair is an interesting story, and the fact that, you know, they burst onto the scene as one of the first online furniture stores back in the day. A lot of the retailers, storefront retailers, still didn't quite have that online presence like Wayfair did, plus the cost, you know, of the furniture. And, you know, during the pandemic, there was a high demand for furniture. We all decided to redecorate our living rooms and such. And then afterwards, after the pandemic eased, you know, we spent out when it came to furniture. So Wayfair has suffered a little bit from that. So they've kind of redone their focus areas and they're specializing more in their supply chain, and they're building out their warehousing capabilities, and then from there their deliveries, you know, again keeping it all within their networks and such.
Now we need to talk about returns, Cathy. Not every delivery the delivery might be successful, but the purchase might not be successful. You know,
Mm-hmm.
You might have bought 2 ovens by mistake, or I don't know. Could someone? I'm sure somebody has. They've clicked 2 when they've bought their oven. They had to return an oven. So what are we seeing when it comes to returns in big and bulky? Is that just are retailers integrating the returns into their delivery routes, or I don't know. I imagine that's not taking the eBay approach and saying just destroy the item and send us proof that you've destroyed it.
Hush. No, I mean, all 3 of these companies will accept returns. So, yeah, if you don't like the washing machine or the sofa has a scratch on it, you can put in a returns, contact Costco, Wayfair, or Tractor Supply and say, come pick it up. And they'll come pick it up for sure. And depending on if it's resellable, they'll resell it, put it back on the storefront and resell. Or they may discount it a little bit if there's a scratch used, what have you. So you're right. It used to be retailers wouldn't accept these items back. They'd be just like, tough, you got to keep your 2 stoves, or what have you. I think in that case, they'd come pick it up. But for the most part, no. And then there's also startups in the field that specialize in those returns of big and bulky items. So, yeah, it's not that big of a problem as it used to be.
I suppose when people are buying a big and bulky item, they might be taking a little bit more care with it. Very few people would buy an oven or a couch on a whim, would they? Maybe I'm moving in the wrong circles, Cathy. Maybe there are people out there who buy furniture on a whim, and I just don't know them.
The growth of e-commerce has really caused a lot of this big and bulky items to be delivered to homes. And a lot of times you may buy a sofa online, and when you get it into your house, you can look at it and go, wait, that color is not the same color as what it looks like. I mean, it's the same thing as apparel. I buy that T-shirt and no, I don't like that color, and you return it. So I think you see a lot more of that type of thing.
I suppose we're not going to see bracketing. Right. You're not going to buy 5 couches to try them out in your house to see which colour matches the curtains the best, or the carpet, or the tiles, or whatever.
I guess it depends on the limits of your credit card.
Yeah, probably. Sure. Not the kind of thing I would do, but I just, gosh. Anyway,
I couldn't do that.
If people want to find out more about logistics trends and insights and what you're up to over there, what should they do? How can they find out more?
Well, you can check the website at logisticsti.com, or you can go on LinkedIn. There is a Logistics Trends and Insights company page where I try to post something every day, if not every other day. And feel free to also contact me.
Don't you have a couple of newsletters or one newsletter you need to flog as well, Cathy?
Yes, I do.
A gentle reminder, everybody. Cathy's got a newsletter.
Cathy does have a newsletter. It goes out every Wednesday morning by 8 o'clock Eastern time, I believe. It's a collection of blog posts, and other things that's on the website. So sign up on the website. Just need your email address. That's all.
Follow the links on Cathy's website to find out more about her newsletter, which she hasn't shared the name of the newsletter with you, but you'll find it when you arrive on her website. Cathy Morrow Roberson from Logistics Trends and Insights, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thank you.
Next episode will be part 2 of the end of year special, and it will feature a number of speakers, including Jonathan Boazes from Cardinal and various other luminaries. I just haven't edited it all yet, so who knows who's going to make the cut. I mean, I know in my heart of hearts, but do you know? Probably not. Anyway, subscribe to the podcast in your favourite podcast platform. Rate the podcast. Give it a 5-star rating. If that's what you want to do. If that's not what you want to do, then I'm disappointed in you more than in myself. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can even connect with me on LinkedIn if that's your thing, but you can just follow me. You don't need to connect. That's all right. That way, I'll fill your LinkedIn feed with stuff that's not generated by a computer. It's generated by moi. You can email me, my email address, and you can email me in English only, please, not French, even though I can say a few words in French. My email address is, where are we going with this, everybody? Ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in. And what do I usually say at the end? I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in. And I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.